Hello, I'm Iris Matthews, a romance author. We're jumping back into the house in the Cerulean Sea, T.J. Klune's 2020 novel. We're picking back up in chapter 4. We're going to bounce around a little bit today, and Linus has just met Miss Chapelwhite. Miss Chapelwhite seemed to get far too much enjoyment from the way Linus screamed when they took a corner at a high rate of speed. She handled the car deftly, but Linus was convinced he'd entered the vehicle of a madwoman. They drove on a narrow road through dunes that rose and fell. When the mountains of sand were at their lowest, he caught glimpses of the ocean, now much closer than it had been from the train. Linus tried not to be distracted by the sight of it, but failed miserably. Even though he was sure he was about to die, it was still a wonder to behold. They reached the top of a hill. Below them, along the edges of the ocean, was a cluster of brightly colored buildings nestled amongst tall trees that had been bent over time with the winds. He could see houses spread out into the forest, all in pastels and thatched roofs. It looked like he'd always dreamed a place near the ocean would. It caused his heart to ache. "We won't stop, so don't ask," she warned him. "They don't like it when we do." People in board shorts and bikinis and rubber flip-flops turned to glare at them openly as they drove through. He tried waving at a few of them, but it didn't do any good. He even saw a man inside what looked to be a seafood shanty reach up and lock the door as they drove past. "Well, I never," Linus sniffed. "You get used to it," Miss Chapelwhite said, surprisingly. "Why are they like this?" "I don't pretend to know the minds of men," she said, hands tightening on the steering wheel as a woman on the sidewalk appeared to shield her chubby, squawking children away from the car. "They fear what they don't understand, and that fear turns to hate for reasons I'm sure even they can't begin to comprehend. And since they don't understand the children, since they fear them, they hate them. This can't be the first time you've heard of this. It happens everywhere." "I don't hate anything," Linus said. "You lie." He shook his head. "No, hate is a waste of time. I'm far too busy to hate anything. I prefer it that way." She glanced at him, her expression hidden behind her sunglasses. She opened her mouth to say what he didn't know, but appeared to change her mind. Instead, she said, "We're here." Moving into chapter 5. The odometer had turned over 2 additional miles, and he was about to start panicking. After all, the island couldn't be that big, could it? When the forest fell away around him, and he saw it. There ahead of them, set against the falling sun, was a house. Linus had never seen one quite like it before. It was set up on a hill on a cliff overlooking the ocean. It looked as if it were 100 years old. It was made of brick and had a large turret of all things set right in the middle of the roof. The side of the house facing Linus was covered in green ivy, growing around multiple white window frames. He thought he could see the outline of a gazebo set off next to the house and wondered if there was a garden. He would like that very much. He could walk through it, smelling the salt in the air, and... He shook his head. He wasn't here for such things. There would be no time for frivolities. He had a job to do, and he was going to do it right. And lastly, in chapter 6, Linus looked off the porch. There, standing in the grass, was a man. He was unlike anyone Linus had ever seen before. He was spindly. His light hair was a mess, sticking up at odd angles. It was starting to gray around his temple. His dark eyes were bright and glittering in the near dark. His aquiline nose had a bump in the center, as if it'd been broken once long ago and never sat right. He was smiling, hands clasped in front of him. His fingers were long and elegant as he twiddled his thumbs. He wore a green peacoat, the collar pulled up around his neck against the sea breeze. His slacks appeared too short for his long legs, the hems coming up above his ankles, revealing red socks. He wore black and white wing-tip shoes. "Hello, Mr. Baker," Arthur Parnassus said, sounding amused. "Welcome to Marseilles Island." His voice was lighter than Linus had expected, almost as if there were musical notes behind each word. "I do hope your trip was most pleasant. The ocean can sometimes be rough in the crossing." Linus was flabbergasted. Thanks for joining me on this excerpt reading. Can't wait to dig into more.